Welcome to Encounter Wargaming. I'm Jay, and today we're going to be building some sweet trees with clump foliage. So we begin with just a scrap piece of foam core, and basically all I'm doing is taking my X-Acto knife and cutting out just a bunch of little irregular shapes that are obviously going to be used as the bases for our trees. Now, you want to make sure you use a sharp knife, because otherwise you may get some chunks taken out of the foam. As you can see there, I had some rough pieces of the Bristol board, so there I'm just trimming them off, just making sure they're nice and clean all the way around. And if you want, you can even take sandpaper and sand the edges afterwards, which I didn't do in this case, but that's fine. So now I'm taking my hot glue gun, and I'm basically just taking some sticks. Now, these sticks are actual sticks from the park. But make sure if you're going to use sticks from outside that you leave them to dry out for quite a long time. These I've had forever. You've seen quite a few tree terrain videos on this channel, and these are the same pile of sticks that I've used right from the beginning. So they've had lots of time to dry out, but make sure they are fully dried out before you use them, because the last thing you want is your terrain pieces to rot from the inside out. But with the hot glue, basically, it's going to take a while to hold them and let them dry, but in case you can't notice, I'm basically just building up around the base of the sticks, sort of creating a mound at the bottom that they can sort of hold into and act sort of like roots once it's dry. And then I'm just taking some white styrofoam, that annoying white styrofoam that everybody hates, it makes a mess everywhere, and just throwing it around random spots to look like rocks. And then, of course, I'll take my spackle, as I always do, and just completely cover the bases of these pieces, making sure to cover all of the surface area of the white styrofoam, especially the edges of the foam core bases. I want to make sure that those edges are covered, because when I go to put my glue on, put my sand on and stuff like that, I don't want it to warp the foam core, and I don't want to have any exposed foam. I want them completely covered. The white foam, the black foam core completely covered. And now I'm just going to take my pin drill and some crazy glue and drill holes where I think the branches should be. So I've got a bunch of the sticks, the smaller ones, and I'll just break them into pieces, and then take my pin drill and drill holes into the trunk where I want the branch to be. Then you can simply drill a hole up the center of the branch, take a paper clip, cut it with your clippers, and basically it'll act like a spine, for lack of a better word, in the branch, making sure that it doesn't break off in the future. And then once you've crazy glued the paper clip into the branch, you can crazy glue it into the trunk. And then I like to just hit the joint between the two of them with a little bit of crazy glue, because like I say, these sticks are very dry and the glue will soak in, but also it's relatively instant, so it'll hold really well. Now, there is still the chance that they will break off in the future though. This is just sort of a temporary hold, but the spine will create a lot of strength. So this is where we really make them hold together well, is with some PVA glue. And I'm just going to take the PVA glue and I'm going to paint all of the trunks, the branches, everything. Because as I've said before in the past, PVA glue, like your standard white glue, and wood glue are actually the same thing. It's just the yellow wood glue has an extra chemical that reacts to wood in it. But because the sticks are super dry, this PVA glue should soak into them really well. And then especially making sure to get lots around the joints of the branches will make sure that they stay in the future. And then my next step, as you're seeing me do here, is just simply, once the PVA glue on the trees is dry, to put PVA glue and sand on the bases. And like I said, because I spackled every inch of that base, there should be minimal warping, because foam core, of course, is going to warp when it gets wet. But with all the spackle on there, there should be minimal warping. Now I'm going to take some Mulli-Put, just some cheap molding clay, and basically create sort of like disc shapes and cone shapes, sort of like mounds, I guess, that I'm going to put around all of the branches. And this looks really funny right now. I know it looks really strange. It's like, why are these globs of goo on the edges of these branches? But you're going to find that the clump foliage doesn't stack on top of itself very easily. So what we're doing here is just basically filling out the branches rather than connecting a whole bunch of little tiny branches that will fill out the areas of leaves. We're just going to throw on a primer coat of Rust-Oleum Espresso Satin. And basically you want a matte or a satin paint for this, because that's going to be your base coat for the entire terrain piece. And then once that's dry, as you can see here, I'm just taking some cinnamon brown and I'm going to do a heavy dry brush on all the trunks. Then I'm going to take my gray and I'm going to just paint the rock surfaces I want to be exposed rock when this piece is done. And again, it's just a simple dry brush on all the areas I want to be rock. Then I'm going to take my yellow oxide, as I usually do, and paint all of the areas I'm going to have dirt with a heavy dry brush of that. And then finish off the terrain piece with a nice light dry brush of like a bleach bone. This is actually called unbleached titanium, but the same thing as a bleached bone or a Ushabti bone color. Now I'm going to take my pin drill again, and I'm going to drill around places where I think I want my sort of ground plants to be. And much like we did on the jungle terrain series, I'm going to be using just some plastic plants that I got at the pet store or at the dollar store and cut them up into little bits. And basically just super glue them into the holes that I've created. So I've got some crazy glue and I'm just dumping it into the holes I drilled into the bases and gluing in the plants. It's not rocket surgery. Once that's done, I'm going to go around and find areas that I want basically grass. So I like to use this step to cover inconsistencies in my paint job or areas where, you know, it just doesn't look very good. And you can use that grass to cover up any of those inconsistencies and problems. And this stuff you see here is just some little bushes that I got at the hobby store that I'm just going to randomly PVA glue around the base just for some extra detail. Now we get started into our clump foliage, and for that I'm basically just taking some crazy glue and dumping it all around the surface that I want to put the foliage and just instantly sticking on. I have used white glue in the past, but it's problematic because as the foliage gets wet, it tends to fall off the piece. So I like to use crazy glue because it's instant, just does a good job of holding it in until I go to seal it. And I've got, as you can see here, 2 different colors of clump foliage, and I'm just making sure to especially cover the globs of mulliput. I don't want any of that visible because it's just going to look horrible. And then any areas along the branches where they meet, where there's inconsistencies in the branches, I'm going to make sure to cover those in the clump foliage as well. Making sure that, again, there's more than one color, so there's some variance, and it doesn't look like they're all the exact same kind of tree. And just going around and covering it up best I can. And there they are, completely done. The last step is to seal them in. So as you can see here, I'm spraying the tops of the trees first with the lacquer. I'm just using a standard clear matte lacquer. And the reason I'm doing the tops first is because if you hold that can right next to the foliage and just spray, it's going to knock a whole bunch of that stuff off. And as you can see, as I do it, a little bit's falling off here and there. I'm just going to go around with my hand and pick it off so it doesn't get stuck to the base. Just make sure that you soak the foliage really well with this stuff, with the lacquer, just to make sure that in the future this clump foliage doesn't fall off. And that's all there is to it. And there's our trees, fully complete. Let's give you a good look at them. This was a super fun project. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sweet. As you can see, the clump foliage is dried very hard. It is a little bit spongy. Like you can see, there's a little bit of squish to it, but at least this way it's not going to fall off when I shake it. Right before it was just falling off when I shook it, and now nothing. So that should keep it pretty protected for future use. I have good hopes for these terrain pieces and their survivability. So, you can see how easy that was, guys. It was a little more on the expensive side as far as terrain goes, just because of the amount of clump foliage and the plastic plants and stuff that we had to do. Had to buy, sorry. But otherwise, cheap, easy, and looks great. So I hope you all enjoyed that tutorial. It was a lot of fun for me. Like I say, this is actually for a commission, so I hope my customer is very happy with these. I'm sure he will be, because I think they're absolutely amazing looking. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please pound that subscribe button, pound that notification button, pound that like button, because all those things go a long way to help us here at Encounter Wargaming get up in the search engines and stuff like that, but it also helps you by notifying you every time one of these videos come out. We do terrain tutorials, we do battle reports, we do hobby tutorials, we do it all. There's a podcast. Also, if you really like our content, make sure to go to the description below and check out our Patreon campaign. All our goals and everything are on there, and by helping us reach our goals, you get a whole bunch of extra stuff. You get extra content, you get this content early, as well as a whole bunch more. So check out the page, it's all on there. And otherwise, hit subscribe, and we will see you at our next encounter.
Hey everybody, I'm Adam.
And I'm Jay.
We are Encounter Wargaming.
And we wanted to celebrate hitting our 1,500 subscribers with giving some stuff away. What are we giving away, Adam?
Fort Bane! Alright, we're calling this the 2,500 subscriber Forge Bane giveaway because that's the target we need to hit to give this puppy away.
That's right. So the first thing you need to do is share this video, the video you are watching right now. And
then click subscribe on YouTube.
if you haven't already.
That's it for one entry.
And the more you share it, hopefully, the more people we can get to hit subscribe and hit that 2,500.
Woo!
But there are other ways to win as well.
Tell them about it.
Well, you can follow us on Twitch. That will also get you an entry. So you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitch. On top of that,
support us on Patreon for 5 big buckaroo entries.
Crazy. So also all the people that already support us on Patreon, don't worry, you're also 5 entries. But also, you can hit subscribe on Twitch. Subscribing on Twitch will get you another 5 entries into the contest.
So good, and all of this to say thank you guys for all the support. We appreciate it very much. We've come a long way, and it's because of you.
It's true. It's been a wild ride, and thanks for all the support, all the help, and we want to give you some cool stuff as a thank you.
Awesome. So hey, remember to share this video, and guys, I think that's it. So we'll see you at our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rocket on his way back home. Okay.